Let's get some insights following that development.
We have maritime security expert Ray Powell joining us now via Zoom. Good morning and thanks for joining us again.
Good morning, Ray.
Hey, it's good to see you.
Right.
All right, Ray. I suppose you saw the video. So there is a demand by the Chinese maritime expert, and the basis, based on what I've read so far and very rough, is that the Philippine vessel deliberately did those maneuvers to bait the two Chinese ships to collide with each other. Now, what is your take on that?
Well, of course, to begin with, the idea that I'm just sort of amused by the fact that they are able to ask for damages, but they're not able to say what the damages were for,
Yes.
because they don't admit that their ships actually got into a collision. So it's become quite amusing to sort of watch Chinese state media and its spokespeople go out there and talk about this terrible thing that happened, but they can't say exactly what the thing was. So I think a lot of their view on the case is that the Philippines is just not supposed to be there.
Okay.
And what we've seen happen over the last 16 months or so is that China has built up what I've been calling an exclusion zone, about 25 nautical miles all the way around Bajo de Masinloc. And that, they are essentially saying nobody can come in here. And I think the part of the reason that we saw this Chinese destroyer get involved at all was they were just, really upset that the BRP Suluan had got in that far. And so, that's what led them into such aggressive tactics and ultimately to the collision.
But I was wondering, what are the immediate strategic implications of, PLA deploying essentially a high-end warship for a law enforcement style mission?
Yeah, I don't think that they planned for that to happen. I think what happened was BRP Suluan got in farther than they expected, and there was essentially nothing around except for the one China Coast Guard ship, and so the destroyer decided to involve itself. And I think it was a foolish escalation on their part, and of course they're reaping the damages. One of the things is that the tactical coordination between these two ships was probably not very high, because the Navy and the Coast Guard don't operate that closely together usually.
That's
right. So, yeah.
Well, but would you think, is it possible that this could normalize aggressive maneuvers in the future?
Well, every time a new thing happens, you do worry that it becomes the new normal, right? So we're going to have to watch very closely to see if this happens again. I actually, I believe that this was not intended. I don't think, obviously the collision wasn't intended, but the involvement of the Navy destroyer was not intended. When they thought about how this was going to go, they had so many ships already there. Between the Coast Guard and the Maritime militia, but I think they were just surprised that one got through.
I remember, Ray, I think we were talking a few months back, and we said based on the level of aggression, China has been escalating, and it would be shortly we were saying that casualties could happen. Unfortunately, on the Philippine side, we reported casualties did happen for our Chinese counterparts, but there is a denial from China on this.
Well, there's not even just a denial, it's just silence. They just don't say anything. And it's really, as I said, it's kind of comical, because on one hand, they have to say things because everybody knows, but on the other hand, they can't say the actual thing, which makes them kind of a laughingstock, I think.
Based on the maneuvers that I saw from the Navy ship, Ray, I quite don't understand their high-speed approach towards one of their own ships. Don't they have markers? Don't they know that they are approaching or going to collide with one of their own?
Yeah, clearly they didn't. So they were intentionally fixated, I think, on the Philippine ship. So that I think that had all of their attention, and they simply weren't paying attention. The people who needed to be paying attention on the bridge clearly were not paying attention to the position of the Coast Guard ship. So, as I said, I think this is indicative of the fact that they don't usually operate together. And actually, that's a very interesting point because they do look at their paramilitary force. When I say paramilitary, I'm including the Coast Guard, the Maritime Militia, even these civilian vessels that they're thinking of using, for example, in a potential Taiwan invasion to transport troops. You know, they've got this idea that they're going to mix all of these force types together, but these are ships that don't operate together.
That's
and
right.
now we see what happens when they actually are forced to try to do it.
Now, Ray, there have been U.S. ships that have been patrolling also the area. What now would the U.S. have to do, given that there are casualties? Maybe not on the Philippine side, but it could have gone both ways.
Yeah, so the U.S. is used to this a little bit. We've been doing freedom of navigation operations for over 40 years. They occasionally will get a little sporty. We had an incident, say, in 2018, when we had a ship in the South China Sea do a freedom of navigation operation, and a Chinese destroyer almost came within, say, 100 yards or so. So, we've had some close calls. So the ships that do those fawn ops are highly trained and sort of expect the unexpected, because we've seen it happen already.
Right. While a Chinese maritime expert demands the Philippines to pay the damages that occurred during that unfortunate incident, we can also let them remember or remind them of what happened during June 17, 2024. We are also asking for damages on that incident. So how can we compel them to, pay us as well?
I would not be spending that money anytime soon. I don't think it's coming. So, in China's telling of things, and as you've seen, everything is the Philippines' fault. So anything that happens is the Philippines. Even if their own ships hit each other, that's the Philippines' fault. So, the fact that the sailor lost his thumb at Ayungin Shoal, well, that's the Philippines' fault because they weren't supposed to be there. So that's how these things work in their rationale. I don't think that's going to change.
But I think, Ray, the Philippines has proven to the rest of the world that we really mean no harm. That we even offered assistance to our Chinese counterparts. Now, moving forward, how do you think we should play this out?
Well, so, I think what's clear is that China is not going to relax its exclusion zone, at least anytime soon. I think it's decided that now is the time for it to take full control of Bajo de Masinloc. The time of, even of course, they've ignored the arbitral ruling all along, and the arbitral ruling said that all countries that the people who used to fish there should be allowed to continue fishing there, and China doesn't care about that. They're not interested in that. What they are interested in is expanding their claim, and so they are an expansionist power. They are essentially carrying out a maritime occupation of the West Philippine Sea, and I think they plan to do that for a while. So what I have generally said about this, I think that it is good that the Philippines continues to contest, because you want to send the message that you're not leaving. You have not abandoned your claim to Bajo de Masinloc, and I think that's important. So you have to keep going out there, right? But at the same time, I think it's not going to change the fact that they're going to control it for a while. The real question is what happens in, say, 5, 10, 15 years. I think that's actually how far out you'd have to start thinking about this. Because the way that you defeat an occupation is you wait for the occupier to get tired of all of the costs of occupation, right? So, and it's not just having ships out there. It's not just having dangerous situations. It's the beating that they're taking on the international stage. And at some point, they're going to care about that again. They don't care about it so much right this minute, but they will eventually. I think they do care about it, but they care about having Scarborough Shoal more. So, the Philippines has to think long term. Understand that this is at some point there will be a government in Beijing they can talk to. It just isn't right now.
The question here is that will they get tired? All right, thank you. You think they will get tired?
What do you think, Ray?
Look, that's how occupations end. And they do. And now sometimes it takes a very long time, but that's how they end.
So before we go, is it a game of rather who gets tired first, the Philippines or China?
Well, China, I think that is actually a huge part of the game, right? So China is hoping the Philippines will get tired and go away. And maybe they're hoping that some future administration in Manila will say, "Hey, why are we doing this?" That that shoal has been gone for a long time. We're not getting it back, so we'll just give up.
Right.
And once that happens, then that'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
With that, thank you so much for your time again, maritime security expert Raymond Powell. Thank you so much for joining
Thanks.
us.
Good to see you.
Okay, well, malinaw kasi we talked about it a few months ago about an escalation would happen na may casualty based on how aggressive they are. True enough, may casualty. It doesn't matter sa nanggagaling ang casualty sa atin or sa kanila, may namatay pa rin. And may namatay, what's so ironic lang is,
offered help.
yeah, it's from their side pa ang namatay. So that's how aggressive they are going. If you see the speed ng pag-ram ng Navy ship, ang bilis.
And what's concerning
Bilis ang
about that
approach.
is that yung normalization of deploying essentially high-end warship doon sa area when in fact the mission that was happening there at that time was yung Kadiwa mission for the
Well,
fishermen.
I'm not surprised about yung Navy ship because may monster ship. If you remember, may monster ship on China
Yeah,
umaaligid
but it was just there.
No, it was
Chasing.
It was patrolling the area, meaning bakit ka may monster ship? Monster ship nila is one of their biggest ships sa fleet. So ano yung pinapatunayan nila?